first, it seemed innocent enough, a typical Monday morning resistance. Karen stood by the kitchen counter, coffee in hand, as Liam shuffled in wearing his backpack half-sipped and eyes tired. "I don't want to take the bus today," he mumbled. She glanced at the clock. They were already running late. "Why not?" she asked casually. Liam shrugged, not meeting her gaze. "I just don't feel like it." She sighed, assumed it was laziness, and drove him herself. That morning seemed ordinary, but it would be the first of many like it. By the end of that week, Liam had refused the bus 4 out of 5 days. Each time, he had a different excuse: headache, forgot something, stomach cramps. The odd thing was, every time she offered to call a doctor or let him stay home, he refused that too. "I just want to go with you," he'd say. Karen started to notice the fear behind his eyes, not whining or manipulation, actual fear, like something was deeply wrong. But when pressed, he became quiet and withdrawn, retreating to his room and avoiding all questions. The change in his behavior became more noticeable with each passing week. Liam began waking up earlier, fully dressed before sunrise, not from excitement, but from dread. On days he couldn't avoid the bus, he'd stand near the window, staring at the driveway like he was watching for something. The color drained from his face when he saw the yellow vehicle pull up. Karen once tried jokingly saying, "What, is the bus haunted or something?" Liam didn't laugh. In fact, he whispered under his breath, "Maybe." She froze. Something was definitely off. Karen brought up the issue with other parents during a PTA meeting. Oddly, no one else seemed to have complaints. Some even mentioned how well-behaved Liam was on the bus. "He just keeps to himself," one mom said. "Polite, quiet, doesn't cause trouble." That only confused Karen more. Why would he be so terrified of something he wasn't even reacting to publicly? He wasn't being bullied, or at least, not in the obvious ways. He hadn't come home with bruises or tears in his clothes. But emotionally, her son was shutting down. And he was clearly hiding something. Desperate for answers, Karen tried casually questioning Liam again. This time, she offered to make a deal. He could skip the bus for a week if he told her the real reason he didn't want to ride it. He paused. His small hands clenched the edge of the kitchen table. "There's something wrong with the bus," he said finally. "Things happen there when no one's watching." She felt a chill crawl down her spine. "What things?" she asked. But Liam wouldn't say another word. His eyes darted toward the front door, as if he feared something might be listening. In the weeks that followed Liam's confession, Karen began noticing changes in him that couldn't be brushed off as childhood mood swings. He wasn't just afraid of the bus anymore, he seemed afraid of everything. Once a bubbly and talkative kid who loved talking about dinosaurs and video games, Liam now spent most of his time alone, his curtains drawn, his room always dark. He no longer laughed at his favorite shows or joined in family dinners. Even when Karen tried to coax him into small talk, he'd either give one-word answers or change the subject. Nighttime became a source of dread. Liam, who had always been a sound sleeper, began waking up at odd hours, soaked in sweat, his breathing erratic. He started sleeping with the hallway light on, something he hadn't done since he was 5. One night, Karen found him curled up on the floor next to his bed, wide-eyed and shaking. "It was behind the seats," he whispered when she gently asked what had scared him. But when she pressed for more, he simply covered his ears and repeated, "I don't want to talk about it." Whatever he had seen or experienced, it had etched itself deep into his mind. Karen's concern grew even more intense when she began noticing physical signs, subtle, but alarming. Small bruises on his upper arms and wrists, a scratch near his collarbone. When asked, Liam dismissed them as playground accidents or bumping into things, but his stories didn't add up. He'd trip over his words, change the version each time. What rattled Karen most was how startled he became by everyday noises: a dropped spoon, a phone vibrating, a dog barking outside. His reactions were too intense for a child simply dealing with school stress. It was as if his body was locked in constant fear. Desperate to understand what was happening, Karen reached out to his teacher. Ms. Holloway said Liam had become distant and unfocused. "It's like he's physically here but mentally somewhere else," she said. "He stares out the window a lot, doesn't talk to other kids unless they speak first." Honestly, I thought maybe there was something going on at home. That cut Karen deeply, not because it wasn't true, but because she didn't have any answers either. She felt like she was losing her son and didn't even know why. The final straw came one afternoon, when Karen picked Liam up early from school for a dentist appointment. As they walked past the parking lot, the school bus pulled in late from another route. At the sight of it, Liam froze mid-step, his breathing quickened, his eyes locked on the vehicle like it was alive. Then he whispered, "It's watching me." Karen turned to him, heart pounding. "What do you mean?" she asked, but Liam just looked away, tears welling in his eyes. Whatever was happening, it wasn't just fear anymore. It was something darker, and possibly beyond her understanding. Determined to get to the bottom of Liam's strange behavior, Karen decided to take a more direct route. She would speak to the people responsible for her son during the school day. Her first stop was the school's guidance counselor, who smiled politely as she listened to Karen's concerns, but ultimately offered little help. "Liam hasn't raised any red flags on our end," she said. "No bullying reports, no academic issues, nothing out of the ordinary." It didn't sit right with Karen. How could her son be falling apart at home, yet seem completely fine at school? Still unsettled, she called the school bus department and asked to speak with the driver of Liam's route, a middle-aged man named Mr. Hastings. He had been driving the neighborhood kids for nearly 15 years and was regarded as trustworthy, even friendly. When Karen met him outside the school during pickup one day, he greeted her with a warm smile and a wave. "Liam, he's a good kid," he said. "Quiet, keeps to himself. No trouble at all." Karen tried to probe further, asking if anything strange ever happened on the route, or if Liam seemed uncomfortable. Mr. Hastings furrowed his brow as if confused. "Not that I've noticed. If something was wrong, I'd tell you." But Karen couldn't shake the feeling that something was being hidden, or worse, ignored. She began reaching out to other parents from the neighborhood. Most of them had nothing unusual to report. In fact, some parents even expressed surprise that Liam was acting up at all. "He's always the first one on and off the bus," one mom said. "Polite, keeps to himself. Yeah, but I never thought he was scared." Karen started to wonder if her son was somehow the only one being targeted, or if something was happening on that bus that no one else could see. What disturbed Karen even more was the eerie consistency in the responses. Every adult she questioned, teacher, counselor, driver, other parents seemed to echo the same phrases. "He's quiet, well-behaved, no signs of distress." It felt rehearsed, too perfect. She began wondering if the school was covering something up, or if perhaps Liam had been threatened into silence. When she brought up the bruises and nightmares, people were sympathetic but dismissive. "Kids bump into things all the time," the counselor had said with a shrug. Karen was left feeling like she was overreacting, but her gut screamed otherwise. One evening, she tried to confront Liam. Again, she told him what the bus driver had said, that he didn't notice anything strange, that Liam looked fine. The boy's reaction was immediate. He stared at her, eyes wide with disbelief. "He said that," he whispered. Karen nodded slowly. Liam's lips began to tremble. "Of course he did," he muttered bitterly, and turned away, curling up under his blanket. That was when Karen knew for sure someone was lying. And the scariest part wasn't just that something was happening on the bus, but that everyone who should have been protecting her son might already be part of it. By now, Karen's instincts had shifted from concerned mother to something sharper, almost predatory. There was a gnawing certainty inside her. Liam wasn't just afraid, he was in danger. And no one, not the school, not the driver, not even the other parents, seemed willing to acknowledge it. Her nights were spent replaying every conversation, every glance from the bus driver, every cryptic thing Liam had said. So when Friday morning came and Liam hesitantly agreed to take the bus, after days of avoiding it, Karen knew this was her only chance. She lied and said she had an early meeting, kissed him goodbye, and waited exactly 5 minutes before grabbing her keys and slipping into her car. She parked 2 blocks away from the stop, keeping a low profile behind a line of hedges and a van. Her heart pounded as she spotted the familiar yellow bus pull up. Liam stepped on board slowly, head down, his small frame seeming to shrink beneath the weight of whatever haunted him. As the bus rolled away, Karen waited a few seconds, then pulled out and followed at a careful distance. She turned off her music, turned off her phone. Every instinct in her screamed that this would be the morning everything changed. For the first 15 minutes, everything appeared normal. The bus made a few routine stops, picked up some kids she vaguely recognized from PTA meetings. But then, without signaling, it took an unexpected left turn, one that veered away from the main road to the school. Karen frowned and tightened her grip on the wheel. There were no houses down this stretch, just a long winding road that eventually led to the edge of an old nature preserve, thick woods, rusted signs, and a gravel path that hadn't seen maintenance in years. The bus slowed, its brake lights flickering. Then it stopped. Not near any stop sign or driveway, just in the middle of nowhere. Karen quickly killed her engine and ducked down, watching through her windshield. Her hands began to tremble as the bus doors creaked open. One by one, a handful of kids stepped off, maybe 6 or 7. Liam was among them, his head still down. But they didn't scatter or walk toward any trail. Instead, a tall figure stepped off the bus behind them. Mr. Hastings. He wasn't smiling now. He wasn't the friendly neighborhood driver she'd spoken to just days ago. His face was blank, focused. He raised one hand, and the children began to walk silently toward the tree line. Like they had rehearsed it before. Karen's breath caught in her throat. Her maternal instinct told her to run, to scream, to get Liam out of there, but something colder kept her frozen. This wasn't just bullying. This wasn't even child abuse. This was something else. She reached for her phone, slowly, carefully, and began recording. Then, with slow, deliberate steps, she exited her car and followed them into the trees, silent, afraid, and entirely alone. The deeper they went, the darker the woods seemed to become, and the more certain Karen became that she had just crossed a line she could never come back from. Karen moved slowly, every footstep deliberate as she crept through the underbrush, branches snapping quietly beneath her shoes. The deeper she followed, the more unnatural the woods began to feel, as though the air itself had thickened, humming with a kind of pressure that made her ears ring. The sound of the children's footsteps ahead had gone eerily silent, replaced by the rhythmic crunch of leaves beneath the boots of adults. Not just Mr. Hastings, she realized there were others. 2 more figures emerged from behind trees deeper in the woods, both dressed in dark coats and standing unnaturally still. They didn't speak. They just watched as the children filed into a clearing surrounded by crooked trees. Karen crouched behind a fallen log and raised her phone, careful not to make a sound. From her hiding spot, she saw the clearing more clearly now. At its center was a shallow pit, freshly dug, its edges jagged and damp. Strange symbols had been carved into the bark of the trees surrounding it, symbols Karen didn't recognize but instinctively recoiled from. They looked ancient, wrong. Around the pit were scattered objects, a broken child's toy, a weathered photo frame, something that looked like animal bones. Her breath caught when she realized many of the photos nailed to nearby trunks were of children, and some weren't. Liam, Mr. Hastings stepped forward, removing his cap and kneeling beside the pit. He pulled a small black bottle from his coat and poured a thick red liquid into the soil, murmuring words Karen couldn't understand. One of the other adults, a woman with long gray hair and a pale, waxy face, began humming a low, bone-chilling tune that echoed strangely in the clearing. The children stood in a circle around them, unmoving, their eyes wide and glassy. Liam was there too, his lips parted slightly, as if caught between a trance and terror. Karen wanted to scream, to run to him, but something held her still. Fear, yes, but also the realization that what she was witnessing wasn't just abuse, it was ritual. The man with Mr. Hastings began speaking in a low, rasping voice, and the others joined in. Karen couldn't catch every word, but certain phrases chilled her blood. The offering must remain unbroken. Sealed by silence, protected by fear. The veil must not lift until the watcher chooses. Then, one by one, the adults placed their hands on the heads of the children. Liam flinched slightly but didn't move away. The chanting grew louder. Karen gripped her phone tightly, recording everything, feeling like she had slipped into some twisted nightmare. This wasn't a game. This wasn't fantasy. Something was happening here, and her son was at the center of it. And then, as if pulled by an invisible string, Liam slowly turned his head and locked eyes directly with her hiding spot. For a moment, time stood still. His face didn't show relief or fear. It showed something else. A look Karen had never seen before. Confusion, maybe. Or recognition. The humming stopped. The woods grew still. One of the other adults turned toward the same direction. Karen's heart leaped into her throat as she slowly lowered herself behind the log again. Praying no one had seen her, praying whatever this was hadn't just become aware that she was watching. Karen's breathing became shallow as she crouched behind the log, paralyzed. The atmosphere in the clearing had shifted, something unseen had changed. The moment Liam looked in her direction, It was like a ripple of awareness passed through the group. Though none of the adults made a move toward her, their chanting slowly dissolved into a chilling silence. Mr. Hastings rose from the pit. His hands stained dark red from the liquid, his face expressionless. Then, in a voice loud enough to echo through the trees, he said, "Let the silence witness. Let the watcher decide." Karen's blood turned to ice. It felt like the words weren't just meant for the group, they were directed at her. The silence that followed was unbearable. The children remained in their circle, unmoving. The adults began placing small objects, dolls, wooden carvings, and what looked like old keys, at the edges of the pit. One of the cloaked strangers pulled out what appeared to be a faded book bound in leather, its pages yellowed and warped. He began reading, his voice low and monotone, but the words were not English. They carried a strange rhythm, almost hypnotic, as though designed to lull the listener into a trance. Karen's vision blurred for a moment, her ears ringing. She clenched her teeth and focused on Liam, grounding herself in his presence, refusing to let whatever this was pull her under. That's when she saw it, a flicker of movement within the pit. At first, she thought it was her eyes playing tricks on her. But then she saw it again, the soil shifting, as if something beneath the earth was pushing upward. Her hand trembled as she raised the phone again, recording the moment. The children didn't react. Neither did the adults. Mr. Hastings simply watched the pit with reverence. Something was rising. Something alive. Karen's heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. She wanted to scream Liam's name, grab him, and run, but she knew doing that now would alert them all. And then the woman with the gray hair spoke in a clear voice, cutting through the air like a knife. "It accepts the offering." With that, she extended a hand toward Liam. He flinched a small, almost imperceptible step backward. Karen tensed, ready to spring from her hiding place, but Mr. Hastings placed a hand on the woman's arm. "Not yet," he said calmly. "He's not ready. The bond isn't complete." Karen didn't understand the meaning, but she didn't have to. All she knew was that her son was being prepared for something unnatural, and they were taking their time with it, grooming him, conditioning him, stealing him from the inside out. As the group began to disperse, the children were led wordlessly back toward the bus like sleepwalkers. No one spoke, no one ran. Karen stayed hidden, her muscles aching, until the last footstep faded into the distance. She didn't dare follow immediately. Her mind spun with 1,000 questions and an overwhelming, terrifying certainty. This wasn't just a group of disturbed adults. This was something older, something rehearsed, a ritual passed down, protected by secrecy, and cloaked behind the facade of everyday life. And worst of all, it was still happening. Liam was still in it, and no one would believe her if she told them what she saw. Karen didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the pit, the chanting, the way Liam had looked at her, not surprised, not scared, but as if he knew she was there. She must have watched the video she recorded over a dozen times, trying to find some explanation that made logical sense, but there wasn't one. What she had witnessed couldn't be rationalized or explained away as a misunderstanding. It was ritualistic, deliberate, and the worst part, the children seemed trained. They knew what to do. Karen realized with a sickening chill that this hadn't been the first time. By morning, she made her decision. She wasn't going to stay silent. She packed up Liam's things and drove to the police station with her phone in hand, hoping anyone, would see what she saw. But as soon as the officer viewed the video, his expression changed. Not to concern, but discomfort. He glanced at his partner. "Ma'am," he said, voice tight, "this looks edited." She blinked. "Edited? That's real. I filmed it yesterday morning." But they weren't listening. The moment she mentioned the school bus, Mr. Hastings, and the children being led into the woods, they exchanged looks, the kind that told her this was not new information, the kind that screamed cover-up. Frustrated and panicked, Karen turned to the media. She sent the video anonymously to a local news outlet under a fake name. That same evening, the footage aired, grainy and shaky, but real. The symbols, the pit, the chanting, the eerie procession of children in the woods. It caught fire on social media instantly. Comments poured in, some horrified, others skeptical, a few calling it an art project or viral hoax. But buried beneath the noise were people claiming they'd seen similar things years ago in different towns. People whose children had gone missing. People who were never believed. Karen realized she had struck something deeper than a local scandal. She had unearthed a pattern. By the next morning, everything changed. Mr. Hastings was gone, completely vanished. His home abandoned. His mailbox overflowing. No trace of where he'd gone. When Karen demanded answers from the school, they claimed he had submitted a resignation due to family illness. The bus route was reassigned, and a formal email was sent to parents, reassuring them that recent viral footage circulating online is being investigated for authenticity. It was a polished, politically correct denial. Karen saw through it immediately. The school wasn't trying to protect the children, it was protecting something else, something much older, and far more dangerous. But what terrified Karen most wasn't the silence from the authorities or the school's denial. It was Liam. After that day, he seemed different. Not in the withdrawn, anxious way he had been before, but calm. Too calm. He stopped having nightmares. He stopped resisting the bus. He even smiled once, a small, eerie smile that didn't reach his eyes. When Karen asked if he remembered the woods, he tilted his head slightly and said, "I don't think we're supposed to talk about it." That night, she found a small wooden carving under his bed. It wasn't his. It was one of the objects from the clearing, perfectly placed, waiting. Karen no longer lets Liam out of her sight. The house is always locked now, curtains drawn, lights flicker at odd hours. And sometimes, when she checks on Liam in the middle of the night, she finds him standing at the window, whispering things she can't quite hear, facing the woods behind their house, woods they didn't even live near before. She's tried moving. Twice. Both times. Within a week, a yellow school bus would appear parked just outside the new home. Engine silent, doors closed, no driver in sight, no route number, no reason to be there, just sitting, waiting. And every morning, without fail, Liam wakes up before her, already dressed, standing by the door, backpack in hand, smiling.
If you liked this video, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Most importantly, subscribe and hit the bell icon so the next secret finds you first.